This question exploits the primary difference between the traditional epic Beowulf and a perspective novel, Grendel. In Beowulf, Grendel is characterized as a wretched monster, simply evil by nature. However, in the novel from the monster's point of view, there's a lot more depth and complexity to this question. We see, instead, a questioning, self-conscious being capable of introspect. This begs the existential application that he does in fact have some self-determinism. While at times Grendel himself believes he is compelled by some blind mechanical force, after his encounter with the Shaper, he begins to ponder his role in the world. In fact, on page 44, after encountering the beauty of the poet's words, he is so filled with sorrow and tenderness that he could hardly have found it in his heart to snatch a pig. This implies that he is capable of empathetic thoughts and therefore empathetic actions. In fact, later in the novel, he attempts to join the jubilation of the villagers, only to be rejected and attacked based on his appearance. Shortly afterwards, he begins his murderous raids, perhaps motivated by a revenge against the villagers' actions. This demonstrates a causality motivated by conscious choice, implying Grendel's actions are determined not by nature, but by a deliberate, premeditated will.
It is not as straightforward as one might expect because we see the world from Grendel's point of view. There are several distinct events that Grendel experienced that might have led to his rage and hatred of humans. For example, Grendel's talk with the dragon and learning about the purpose in his life, or when he attempted to join the humans but was attacked for his monstrous appearance, or just the fact that he observes the humans warring all the time against each other and looks upon this self-destructive behavior. This transition to violence is primarily derived from his search for purpose as well as his isolation. He sees himself as superior to humans and seeks to bring destruction to a species that already destroys itself.
Despite his indiscriminate, unbiased killing of the Danes, Grendel deliberately singles out one man, Unferth, and, despite his frequent encounters with the wannabe hero, repeatedly chooses to spare his life. His motivation for such a blatant deviation from his typical modus operandi is intriguing, and it lies in the fact that Unferth is one of the few possessing a sufficiently self-righteous disposition to challenge the monster. In fact, such self-righteousness is present to the extent that Unferth is willing, and perhaps hoping, to die for a noble death in a hard-fought duel for his fellow man. In his eyes, sacrificing one's life is the ultimate testament to one's honor he so desperately desires. Grendel, in being able to communicate with Unferth, senses this and, as a result of his cynicism for the so-called hero type, denies him this honor by repeatedly sparing his life. This does not spare the young fellow's shame, however, as he is still incapable of actually defeating his adversary. Therefore, he is faced with a conundrum in which he is forced to face with shame, a fate, in his eyes, worse than death. This amuses Grendel.
This question whether Grendel truly has self-determination and is one of the main themes of the book, existentialism and having meaning to one's life. In Chapter 5, page 74, a future-seeing dragon advises Grendel to seek out gold and sit on it. So why is the dragon giving Grendel advice if the future has already played out in front of him and he knows what is going to happen? The dragon, as we've previously stated, was a tipping point that caused Grendel to burn the bridge between him and humankind, convincing him that it was his purpose to destroy mankind. So with this, I believe that if Grendel never talked with the dragon, then Grendel, Unferth, and Hrothgar might have gotten along for a short period of time. But eventually, I'm sure that a similar development would have caused Grendel to wreak havoc among humankind anyways. You can just edit that later.